Hello, everyone, and welcome to Cellular Healing TV, episode 102. I have Dr. Pompa here, and we have a special guest, fitness guru Phil Kaplan. How you guys doing?
We're doing great. Fitness guru. I think he's more than that these days, but he is a fitness guru, isn't he?
I've evolved past the fitness guru.
I know, I threw that in. I don't know why I even exactly said that. It just kind of came out.
I call that too.
So much more.
I call that too.
I've ascended.
Yeah.
It's been an ascension.
Yeah, you do. Well, how are you guys doing? I know I'm here in Pittsburgh, but you're in sunny, beautiful Florida. And how you doing down there?
Not so sunny, not so beautiful today, but we're here.
Oh.
So beautiful, 72 degrees, and there's no snow. That's
At Park City, Utah, where I'm usually doing this snow, they got another 1.5 feet of snow last night. So.
Oh man, you having dreams of skiing out there?
Yeah, I would be skiing. I think that the kids are out powder skiing. I'm missing it.
Oh man, wow. Well, it'll be there when you return, I'm sure.
Bill used to do a radio show called Mind Body. Was it Mind Body?
It was not Mind Body.
Was it Muscle Brain?
It was the Mind and Muscle Fitness Hour.
See, I got all the words. The Mind and Muscle Fitness Hour. So you're right. He has evolved from the fitness guru today, and he really is the mind guru.
Well, I'll tell you where it came from, because, at first I thought I was speaking to people in the gyms, people who work out. And it was a radio show, so I was talking about muscle. But when I would do a seminar, I realized that it wasn't only people who work out that were coming. Everybody was coming from every walk of life. And they would say, I need to start. I tried, but I failed. I can't. And I realized that mindset is such a vital piece of it. So it became Mind and Muscle Fitness Hour. And that's part of why I studied mindset so much, because I realized if I'm going to help people get better, you got to get in here. Right?
But you actually studied psychology. I mean, this was your big thing. I mean, you really dug deep in this subject.
Well, I started in college. I took Psychology 101, and I was excited about it because I always wanted to learn how to influence people. I was fascinated by influence. And I was really disappointed with the class because we learned about Sigmund Freud and the Oedipus complex and B.F. Skinner, nothing that had to do with influencing people. I liked the optical illusions. I think it was page 222. They had optical illusions. So when the teacher would talk, I was so bored I would just look at the optical illusions. But I said, this isn't what I wanted to learn. And then independently, I found the work of somebody named William James. And he was kind of a rebel. And he coined the phrase willpower.
Yes.
So when people talk about willpower now, that's where it came from. And I started reading his work, and it started resonating with me. And it said, we all have will. It's just, do we take the power to access it? So that took me on the beginning of a different course. And then I started learning from experts in influence, some conventional, some unconventional. So I did get a very different education than I think college would have led me to.
So Maris, take us into this topic. Why on Cellular Healing TV do we have the mind expert? The body y'all can get, but the mind, why?
Right, exactly. And you gave kind of a great intro onto today's topic, which is emotional detox, and really the impact that emotions have on our health. And I know it's been proven in science how our emotions affect us at the cellular level, and really just the massive impact that our thoughts have on our physical state of being. So why do they have such an impact? Let's start there.
Well, let's go to the expert on this question.
You've heard it said, we become what we think about. And that has evolved. I mean, we can go all the way back to 15th century and earlier. There was an awareness of this concept, we become what we think about. What we focus on is what we're drawn to. And there are two words that I find are really limiting for people, and those are can't and but. And they really mean the same thing. Because when somebody says, I'd like to, but I can't, whenever they use that word but, that's really what they're saying. I'd love to be able to exercise. I'd love to be able to do what Dr. Pompa says, but, and as soon as that word comes out, it's their mind putting a limitation on their potential. So just sometimes getting rid of those blocks is incredible in getting people to develop a greater sense of potential. And with that sense of potential, of course, their potential escalates. So, we go into thousands of stories about people who first had the belief and then achieved it, but it really is cellular. It is physical. And that's what's really important for people to understand. It's not just we think differently, so we behave differently, although that's true. We think differently, and our endocrine system changes. Right. And our cellular makeup changes. And ultimately, as Dr. Pompa shares, our DNA changes. So there's such an unbreakable link between mind and muscle, or thought and outcome, that I think people need to understand that if they really want to get well or they really want to get better.
You know, Meredith, you know that I don't coach as many people as I used to. You know, one of the things that I do is I look for people who really want to get well. Let me put it a more important way, who believe they can get well and want to get well, have the thought process ready to get well. So, you know, I have to interview people because, you know, there was a time in my young career that I thought that I could get everyone well. And I would get very frustrated because, number one, I would expect a lot of people and to do what I do. And certain people would have a lot of can'ts and buts around that, you know, and I would always analyze my own efforts and my own coaching.
Well, and I think until you understand it, you believe them.
That's
like when they say,
I did. No, I did. So I was taking it hard.
Right. We have to figure out a different way because you can't. And what we failed to realize then is they can't because they're telling themselves.
Yeah. Yeah. So, I mean, it was, you know, I have to sift through those people. Not everybody is ready to get well, whether they don't believe it or whether it becomes their identity and they literally have fears to losing who they are. Now, no one ever admits to that, do they? I mean, no one ever goes, yeah, I'm just holding on to who I am and I'm just afraid. I really don't want to get well. I want to stay here.
You know, I'm just going to share this, but we just came back from a mindset conference that we both spoke at. And I gave an illustration of why people repeat the habits that they know are wrong. You know, why do people still smoke? Nobody thinks it's healthy. We can talk about addiction, we can talk about dopamine, but there's a recurring mindset pattern that draws people back to behaviors that are familiar to them. And this happens beneath the conscious level. So even though somebody thinks I want to quit, unless they break the ritual and break the ritualistic thinking, they get caught up in that loop. So whether somebody is sick and wants to get well, or whether they're well and want to be better, whether they're an athlete and they want to perform better, they've got to change their thinking because their thinking got them to where they are.
Exactly.
So when somebody says, I want to change, they may really mean that. But if they've been through this ritualistic behavior that leads them to failure, they don't believe it's possible.
Yeah.
So they have the hope, they have the want, they have the desire, but they don't have the belief.
So Meredith, let me bring it back to you. So when we speak of emotional detox, right? You know, these are the things that we're talking about, meaning changing your thoughts to literally change your DNA at the cellular level and therefore change actually who you are. And then that's going to create different habits, different behaviors, different feelings. Those feelings that we get because of our behaviors then really change our life. But ultimately they feed back and even cement a new you if it's a good feeling. So that's what we mean by emotional detox. So like, you know, we can go in a million different directions, but I know you have a lot of questions.
Yeah, well, I think a lot of us can understand that too. We know that we shouldn't be repeating these negative behaviors, but where do we begin? Okay, we know we need to start this to change these patterns, but how do you start? Where do you begin the process of emotional healing? What does that look like?
I think it's as individual as a prescription for somebody to get healthy is we really have to look at where they stuck and help them get past it. But I'll tell you where I see it start very often. And I think the medical system supports this, and I don't think it's a good thing. Meredith, have you ever had like a runny nose and a cough at the same time, and somebody would say, hey, what's going on? And you go, I am a cold. Did you ever do that? I am a cold, I have become a cold.
I've not said those words, no.
You would say, I have a cold, because you know that you're going to pass through it and come out the other side, right? But when it comes to what we'll call chronic disease of the 21st century, people are labeled. I am hypothyroid. So all of a sudden, there's a new identity. In that moment of diagnosis, there's an identity that's different than their identity before. I am depressed. Not I have depression and I'm going to get better, but I am depressed. So when you start to wear that I am, that starts a loop of thinking. How can you possibly be anything else if this is what you are? So sometimes it starts with identifying that, you know, where are they stuck? But I'll also tell you that, and we spoke about this, people can go through 10 years of psychoanalysis, of deep psychotherapy, and they can unload stuff that they've been holding on to for years, and they can cry, and they can purge, and they can get better. My question to Dr. Pompa was, when they get better, when the thinking actually changes, when they stop holding on to that stuff, did it happen in a moment, or did it happen gradually over 10 years? And I suspect it happens in a moment. So if that's the case, if we can find a shortcut to that moment, can we bypass the 10 years? And I'm not saying there's anything wrong with the 10 years, but who wants to wait that long? So that's what I've been looking for, is how do we find techniques to make that change happen, to make that switch flip, so you don't have to go through the back and forth and the back and forth and the back and forth. And I found some really powerful ways of doing it, and in my own life, unexpectedly, I had to rely on that when I became sick.
I wanted to go there actually, because, you know, I think that right now, Meredith, people are saying, okay, I hear what they're saying, right? I mean, our thoughts become reality. Bruce Lipton, Professor Bruce Lipton, Dr. Bruce Lipton, we're going to have him on a future show, correct?
That's great.
Yeah, and he wrote a book called The Biology of Belief. I think I've spoken about it in the past. And really what he and now others have proven is that our thoughts literally can drive cellular inflammation, which then drives our DNA. So our thoughts, therefore, according to Sir, this isn't my opinion or his at this point, this is solid evidence. Literally, our thoughts then change our cells. This is Cellular Healing TV, folks. Therefore, change our DNA. Our cells then start producing different proteins. Folks, what are proteins? Hormones, neurotransmitters. That's who we are. Every flesh, everything that we are is protein. So therefore, it creates a new you. And then this literally creates new feelings and, you know, who we are, ultimately even healing, because it's a new you at the cellular level. So we can create with our thoughts inflammation in bad cells and bad proteins and bad hormones, or we can change our thoughts. We can then therefore change our DNA and therefore change our thoughts and who we are. So I know that some of you are having trouble, but you brought something up at the end. Let's bring it to our own experiences. Okay, Meredith, I got well. I emptied my bucket using true cellular detox, right? I got rid of my causes in my life. I got rid of the sources that were bioaccumulated in my body and my cells. I got my energy back. I was sleeping through the nights. My digestion wasn't tolerant to foods anymore. All these things, better. However, I was still allergic to chemicals, if you will, allergy. How about this? I was still sensitive to chemicals, meaning I would be fine, and then I would get a whiff of perfume, and all of a sudden I'd be brain fog, irritable, a reaction. I'd get a reaction. Then I would go into a new hotel, and I would, you know, be headaches and wouldn't sleep that night. So this became my new reality or my new me. Better, but yet, you know, these sensitivities with these odd reactions. Phil had came back from, you know, understanding what he already knew, refining it even further into understanding that, you know, these are neuro pathways that get set up. And I knew that. I read some of the stuff, but I didn't believe it quite yet because I got better by removing chemicals. But Phil gave me some stories and I said, okay, great, I'll try it. So being frustrated because I still had these 4 chemicals that I was reacting to, I did it. I changed my thoughts about how I thought about these chemicals. There were neuro pathways set up. So the example, Phil, that I love to give is this. Meredith, if a lion walked in that room, how would you respond?
I'd be scared. I'd run.
Would your body give you a physiological reaction?
Oh, I'm sure it would. Yes, very much so. Go into fight or flight mode.
That's right. So what would be some of the physiological things you would experience?
Nerves, gosh, that is sweating.
There you go. What about your heart? Would it go?
Racing, heart racing.
Anxiety. And after the lion left, would you still be left with some of that feeling?
Oh, it lingers for sure. It can take a while to calm down after a traumatic event for sure.
With physiological?
Yes.
Okay. Now, maybe there was just a perceived lion or a real lion. We don't know. But no matter what, if your
or
brain,
a nice lion.
Or a nice lion. Either way, your brain perceived it as danger. That's what mine and yours brain were doing. We were better, but our brains were perceiving the chemicals as danger, 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 creating those same physiological influences, even driving cellular inflammation. There was neuro pathways that were literally genetically grown. So the question then is, can we alter and make new nerve pathways? Phil?
Yes.
How? Can we shorten
You're
it?
asking me the hard question. You know, I want to tell you when I had that realization, because I got sick from mold. And it took me a while to find out what caused it. But once I did, I got well quickly. But then the chemical sensitivity became really challenging.
Mine was mercury driven. His was mold driven. We were both left in the weight. We got rid of our toxins, but we were both left with the same sensitivity.
Right. So I built a new house, a beautiful house. and I was getting sick in the house. And I knew there was no mold. It was brand new. I made sure there was no mold. And that's around the time that we met, and I invited you to my house, and you walked in and you said 2 words. Do you remember what they were?
Attic.
Attic air.
Attic air.
Yeah. The air is coming in from the attic, and it's the chemicals that are affecting you. And I couldn't understand why the chemicals were affecting me. I knew mold affected me, but why the chemicals? And I studied. I spoke to doctors. I read books. I went to everybody from rabbis to priests to psychologists. I needed to understand this. And then it hit me. And it hit me. I was sitting out on my balcony, and I just saw a crow. And I had this thought, the crow in the fire. Imagine if you're in a fire, and you're going into that mode. Your heart is beating faster, and you're going into that adrenal response, cranking out catecholamines.
Yeah.
And there's a crow in the fire. And you're trying to get out, trying to get out, trying to get out, trying to get out. Finally, you get out. And then the next week, you see a crow, and you get that response.
Same response.
Because your brain associated it. So what's interesting is in my history, the mold was in my office. My office was destroyed by a hurricane. So they rebuilt the office, but they didn't change the air ducts. So all of the rotten air sat in those ducts and grew mold. So the office looked beautiful. But as I'm getting sick, they put in new carpet, new paint, new drywall, chemicals coming at me. So my brain linked the two. It associated the chemicals with the reaction. So I realized if my brain can do that, can I unlink the crow from the fire? And that's where the search really took on meaning, because once I made sense out of that, now I thought there's got to be a solution. I just have to disconnect. So can you do it? Yes, absolutely. And probably you can go through 10 years of therapy. That wasn't the path that I chose. But I learned about something through neuro-linguistic programming called thought stopping. And it sounds ridiculously simple. And it is simply this: stop. When a thought is going through your head, it is cyclical, and it's a pattern. And in neuro-linguistic programming, they call it pattern interrupt, interrupting the pattern. So it's almost as if you're giving a speech and I dump a bucket of water on you. You suddenly stop. What was that?
Yeah.
Right? So my brain hears the stop that comes out of my mouth. It goes up, and there's at least a little bit of a hesitation. Right. So I can pause it, and then it kicks back in. Now the trick was, how do I rewire? Because the neurons that fire together wire together. So chemicals started a path of neurons that led to the adrenal response.
It's called a neural network that takes place.
Correct.
Yeah.
We know this. Your brain does not know the difference between something real or something vividly imagined, which is why you can have a dream, and in the dream you have this reaction. You wake up and you're thinking about it. You still have the reaction.
It doesn't know the difference.
Right. So you have to then realize, you have to tell your brain, wait a minute, that was just a dream. So if I could take myself to a different outcome, in my mind and my imagination, I can create a new chain of neurons. Neurons that fire together, wire together. So here's this loop pathway that I want to break. I can interrupt it, but where does it go from here? So I wanted to create where it goes from here. So at first, I started using memories because they're in my hippocampus. They're in there in the file cabinet. So if I can remember and I can make it so real, then my brain and my body actually go there. It's sort of like if you've ever heard a song during an intimate moment in your life. Years later, you hear the song and you're taken back there, right? Yep. Or you smell a perfume of somebody you dated years ago and you come back there. So that memory was in there. I just needed to make it vivid enough so my brain goes, oh, this is really happening. Mm-hmm. So stop was followed by the memory, a really powerful, strong memory. And it took focus and it took concentration. And at first it wasn't easy because that old pathway wants to pull you back in.
But a good memory. Stop.
A great memory.
A great memory. Because doesn't emotion tie memory even deeper, right? I mean, so you think back to all the worst moments in your life. Do you remember those, folks? Of course you do. It's deep neuro patterning, right? Yeah. So basically you're doing the opposite. We're creating the good memory with that possibly bad experience.
Right.
Chemical, whatever it is. I remember the first time I tried it. Because, I mean, I'm going to be honest with you. I was skeptical. I'm a physical guy, right? I mean, I'm the guy who, it's detox, take the chemicals.
This was hard for me.
Yeah, right? And it's like, so I had to prove it to myself. I was pumping gas. Gas would crush me, Meredith. I mean, the smell of it, I would be wrecked for hours, if not a day. And I smelled it. My immediate response, I started feeling the feelings, right? I said, whoa, 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 stop, stop. I'm in control. I literally visualized the pathway first, realizing that I can go around this same reaction. I stopped. I associated it with, when I was younger, I actually liked the smell of gasoline. I reminded myself that I actually love this smell. And then I immediately went to all these good experiences in my life. I can tell you it worked even the very first time. I did get some head tingling. I sat in my car and I just kept it thinking on those thoughts, those pleasurable thoughts. And you know what? Time went by, someone called me on my phone and I realized, oh my God, I didn't get the reaction. That's when I knew I had victory. And then of course, there's 4 other chemicals or 3 other chemicals, you know, I started applying it. You know, I can be hit with chemicals today, even those 4, and I don't have a reaction.
If 15 years ago I was watching this show, I probably would have turned it off.
Right. Yeah.
Because
Me too.
it's hard to accept, especially if you're grounded in the physics.
Absolutely.
Right? And so I went through that process too. But it was that crow in the fire recognition. And that was just my own thing in my own head. But it was like, suddenly I said, this is true. But I accepted that it's physical. The pathways are physical. The
physical.
neurons fire together.
Give it a concrete example.
Once I accepted that it was physical, now I was ready to take it on. Because no longer was it weird. Yes. It fit right in with my belief.
He gave me, I mean, this was a great example this weekend, right? Of course, we knew the pattern, but I thought, man, this is a great example. So I said to Phil, I said, oh, there's no hamstring machine. We were actually working out. He said, oh, do this. He put a ball on the ground. He had me get straight with my feet up on the ball. And I started shaking back and forth. You know, my nerve system was not accepting it right away, right? And then you even had me do it one leg. The point is this, in about 5 minutes, all of
less than that.
Yeah, less than that. It stopped shaking. What happened? It's called neuroplasty. I was literally developing new neurons, new neuron connections, new chemicals. You know, and then Meredith, every one of you watching this have experienced that, right? Riding a bike, you're doing this and that. You're shaping neuro connections. This neural network is forming, and now you can ride a bike. Now I was balancing on the ball. So that's all you're saying. That's it. That's it.
Yeah. So that worked for me. And, you know, it's funny because I, too, started experimenting. I remember I was actually in Boston, and I wasn't familiar with the neighborhood I was in. But I said, I want to go smell perfume because I want to test myself because perfume was a trigger for me. And anybody who's been chemically sensitive knows that. But anybody who's never been has a hard time understanding it. They go, oh, it must smell really bad, and you run away. It's not that. No. I mean, it's a major reaction where your body starts to shut down.
It's real. It's horrible.
So you also develop a fear with that, right? If somebody get in an elevator and have perfume, I would go into panic.
Me too.
So once I figured this out, I went looking for a place to go. There was a TJ Maxx. I said, I'm going to go in there and find a woman with perfume and just smell her.
TJ Maxx itself.
I'm walking around the store and I'm sniffing women. I mean, thank God I didn't get arrested. But I'm walking up to, and then I find like perfume, and I'm like walking next to her and testing myself. And in my head, I'm going, stop, stop, stop. I'm thinking of the good memory. And then I flew home on a plane, and I'm sitting next to a guy who had really horrible cologne. And I loved it. It was a perfect test for me because now 2.5 hours, I got to sit next to this guy. And I think he thought I was gay because I kept like leaning into him, and he was sort of going like, "What are you getting so close to me for?" But it was like a victory. I was like, "Wow, this really works." However, it didn't stick. In other words, as long as I'm consciously doing it and going to that memory and going to that memory and going to that memory, but the next day I have to do it again. So now the question became, how do you make it stick? And then I learned something amazing. We can use future memories. That doesn't make any sense. How could it be a future memory if it hasn't happened yet? Well, again, your brain doesn't know if something's real or imagined. So if I can imagine something strong enough, if I can make it vivid in my mind, multisensory, using vision, using auditory cues, using feelings, my hippocampus takes it on as a memory. If I can do it repeatedly, it takes it on as a memory. So the beauty of this was I now had a new pathway. It wasn't going back to the memory that was temporary, because as soon as I come back to the present, I've left that memory. But now it was where I'm headed. So that became exciting to me. So it literally created new pathways, and that's the way I got out of that loop. And I have thankfully helped a great many people with that, not only going from sick to well, but changing their behaviors, changing their lives, changing their outcomes.
I'm going to do a plug here real fast because, you know, Phil, you've also done it in people who are trying to become successful. You used to do that in the fitness world. Now you also do it for doctors. You do it for our doctors. You have a program called Be Better that literally is training people to think, because I always say that you are where you are in life because of your thoughts to that point, right? I mean, no doubt. I mean, here we are. You know, our thoughts, our behaviors have created the life that we live. can we create a better one? Can we get the life of our dreams? Being well, you know, the job you want, the career you want, the relationships you want, the outcome, right? So that's what Be Better is about.
Yeah, and you know, Be Better is an 8-month program. So what I'm sharing now, because we're limited on time and you asked me specific questions, is how do you shortcut it? But there's a lot of science that underlies this. And when we talk about mindset, everybody knows the word. It's kind of like metabolism. People know the word, but if you ask them to define it, they sort of get stuck, right? They don't really know what it is. So again, being learned in the physicality, you have to make everything physical.
Right.
So there are 3 parts of mindset, and this really helped me, and this is what I share in the Be Better program. One of them is called the EEM, the emotional experiential memory. And it is exactly what it sounds like. It's emotional, based on an experience.
So I was bit by a chow.
Right.
And I'm still like, you know, when I see a chow, like I have to go through this.
Right.
Is that the EM?
It is the EM, and it's not rational. The EM is not rational. In a moment, it makes a decision to protect you. That's its role. It's going to protect you. So the EEM learns in that moment, chow, bad. Never again go near a chow.
Chows do bite a lot of people, though, so you should be careful of these chows.
And there are many people who love chow, so we're not saying all chows are bad. But it forms this association, and it's very similar to when a child touches a hot stove. They never do it a second time because the EEM goes, don't do that again. So the EEM has a really important role.
Depends on the child. Okay, go ahead.
It depends on the child and the strength.
My child's probably done that twice.
Maybe once with each hand, not the same hand twice. Let me see if it burns with this hand. So the EEM is trying to protect you, and in that, it's important. We need the EEM. It keeps you safe. But a very restrictive EEM creates but and can't.
In fear and stuck in life.
And there are people who will work in the same job and sit in a cubicle and 9 to 5, and because the EEM says this is safe.
Or can you keep them from getting well?
Sure.
Okay.
Sure. Yeah. And as a matter of fact, I don't want to go down this road, but some people find benefit in their sickness. And in that, the EEM says this is safe. Okay. Even though it's not what they want, it says stay here because this is safe. You're going to put yourself at risk if you step outside of the zone. So if we were ruled by the EM, we'd all be stuck in our homes. We'd never go anywhere. But there's another part of the brain, the prefrontal cortex. And that is where adventure lives, where possibility lives. The only way you could think of an imagined outcome is by accessing the prefrontal cortex. So the prefrontal cortex has great ideas if you let it. It's going to go, whoa, look at that building. That's so high. Maybe you could jump off it. That would be fun, right? But then the EM goes, no, that's not safe. So you've got to have this very healthy tug of war. So when somebody is goal-oriented, they're going into the PFC and they're going, I think I'm going to start my own business. The EM goes, but it's a risk. And somehow there has to be a tug of war. But without that PFC pulling, nobody ever goes forward. So mindset really has a lot to do with that tug of war between the EM and the PFC. And if the EM rules, they get very stuck. Whether they're sick or unhappy or just stuck in a place that they don't want to be, that emotional experiential memory tells them step out of this and there's danger. And I think an example that some of you will be able to relate to is if you've ever been in a relationship and you said, this is true love and I'm giving myself completely and nobody's ever seen me this bare emotionally. I'm completely giving my heart. And then you get screwed over and your heart breaks. The EM says giving yourself that much equals heartbreak, and it doesn't let you do it again unless you can get the PFC strong enough to go, maybe there's something better, right? So there's an elegant example of how it limits you in life unless you recognize the power of that balance.
So is that where you have to create that future memory, if you will?
Yes.
Okay.
You cannot create the future memory without accessing the PFC.
Right. So whether it's getting well, whether it's being chemically not sensitive, or whether it's, you know, where you want to go in life and business.
Completing a marathon or winning a race or winning a competition.
I mean, is that the same as a goal, or is it more than a goal?
It's more than a goal. A goal, you know, the Super Bowl, 2 teams show up, right? And they both have the same goal. So one of those teams is going to miss. Mm-hmm. So we sort of accept that a goal is an attempt that we may miss. A future memory is a certainty. When your brain holds onto a memory, it knows it to be true. So if you kind of trick your brain into thinking something that hasn't happened yet, is very simply that. It's a memory that's yet to come. Now it becomes a certainty. So it's more than a goal.
You made a big impact. Go ahead, man. I'll say this one thing, Meredith, I'll turn it over to you. You made a big impact in my life, just getting me to, you know, think better, right? I mean, just, you know, I'm always trying to be better. I'm always wanting to be coached to be better. I do it. I preach it. I always do what I preach. You know, we didn't discuss this, but I know that you're taking on some practitioners in Be Better.
Yes.
And when is the next Be Better? And I know I have a lot of practitioners that watch this show. Is there a way that they could contact you? How do they contact you? Because right now, if you're helping practitioners, they're out there going, yeah, man, I need that training. I need that mindset training.
I didn't know we were going to do this.
No, I know. So but I want
to give my email address.
Yeah, okay. All right. So, hey, Meredith, maybe that's it. Maybe they can contact you and they can give them Phil's email address. Okay.
Sure. Yeah. Meredith, MEREDITH at drpompa.com. Send that over, and I will get you in touch with Phil.
Yeah, and don't bombard them with a bunch of questions. I mean, if you're a practitioner watching this, practitioner of any type, is that right?
Yes. And there's something interesting that I've learned in working with fitness professionals and chiropractors and health practitioners is they're driven first by heart, as you are, right? As you are, Meredith. I mean, as I am. We want to help people, right? We want to make a difference for others. We want to make other people's lives better. And that is a blessing, I believe. However,
gets you into trouble.
It also limits us because we tend to shy away from things like selling because we think salespeople are greedy and they only care about themselves. So the altruistic health professional usually hates the concept of selling, and they hate the concept of doing things for money because it goes against the heart, right? They want to be the altruistic.
That is every doctor we can.
Yeah. So it's a little of the starving artist syndrome. Yeah. They somehow take an odd pride in saying, I'm helping people and I'm not getting paid what I deserve, but I'm helping people. And that's a huge part of what Be Better does, is it releases them from that. And it learns that it is a phenomenal thing, not just an improvement, a phenomenal thing to make more money by bettering the lives of others. Because then, if you get a nickel only for making somebody's life better, when you have $5 million in your bank account, that's a whole lot of lives that you change. So we have to form that association that if you run your business from your heart, then you certainly deserve reward. The other piece of this is, until you get what you deserve, you can't help all the people that you could help. I mean, a lot of health practitioners who don't have time. They don't have time. There's too much going on. They have to pick up the pieces. There's too much to do. Too many patients.
All the time.
But they are limited now to the life they're living. And again, that loop. So if we can free them of that, now maybe they can do seminars and talks and write a book and write articles and reach masses of people.
You've helped so many of my doctors, that we coach, because we have a message that we know the world needs. We do things unique, true cellular detox, everything that we do, the ancient healing strategies, and right, Meredith, and then we see these doctors stuck. It's like, no, you have the answer. You have the answer, and yet, they're so stuck. So, yeah, that'd be great to help people. Meredith, you had a question. I know it was pressing.
Yeah, and it is a responsibility once you have this information for the practitioners to get it out to the world. And shifting mindset is such a huge, huge piece of all of this. And I was thinking too, when you were just kind of talking about creating future memories, I've been taking some notes, some amazing nuggets of information. How does visualization come into this? I know a lot of people out there talk about, visualize your future, visualize all of these, amazing things happening. How does this tie in with creating future memories?
It ties in immensely. And, again, that's a road we don't have time to go down right now, but there are so many studies. We could literally speak for 2 days straight about the evidence of the power of visualization.
Just tell the one story of the scientist who's a friend of yours with the older people. They walked into the thing, and one group visualized one experience.
I love when he says, tell the story, and then he tells the story.
Tell the story. Do you know the story? I'm not telling the story. You make sure you tell another story.
Yeah.
One of those past stories, that we're talking about separate.
I think that I could give hundreds of studies, but there's this repetitive process that they go through where they take two groups, and one group does the thing, and the other group visualizes the thing. It's been done with foul shots. It's been done with piano players. And inevitably, the group that visualizes but doesn't do the thing improves as much, if not more, than the group that is doing the thing. So is visualization powerful? Yes. Now, we are all different in many ways. We're all the same, but we're all different. So we all communicate and learn through vision, sound, and feelings. But when I say we are all different, we tend to favor one more than the other two. So some people are more visual people. Some people are more auditory people. Some people are more kinesthetic people. And what I've learned is if you're working with somebody who's very kinesthetic people, when you ask them a question, they pause. Mm-hmm. And if you're visual, you want the answer right away. I mean, you're watching and you want to see their mouth move, you want the answer. But kinesthetic people pause. And the reason they pause is they can't give you the answer until they get in touch with their feelings. So if you're trying to get a kinesthetic person to visualize, it's almost like you're speaking Japanese to someone who doesn't speak Japanese. So for them, it might be how would it feel? So there is this individual element of it. It's not only the vision, it's the vision and the sound and the feeling. And the more multisensory you can make that future memory, the more your mind believes it. So that's the whole idea, is with your eyes closed, your eyes are seeing the vision. So your brain is going, this is really happening. So visualization is incredibly valuable. However, the most important piece is to associate emotion. You know, when we do a visualization exercise, and I've seen a lot of people do it in many different ways, and they often come out of it relaxed. They go, okay, we're going to count backwards from 3 to 1, 1, you're going to feel relaxed. That's good. But what I do is I have them end it with a celebration in their mind. I want them to see the celebration, and then I want their physiology to reflect it. So when I take somebody through it, yeah, their eyes are closed. If we're making this vision or sound or feeling strong enough, they've literally left the room. You're no longer in their body. They're living whatever it is they're imagining. So in that moment, I can get them to be very unguarded. And we go, okay, now, here's what I want you to do. Appreciate the emotion. Make it bigger. Turn it up. However you feel about it, if it's a 10, I want you to make it a 15. And when it gets to a peak, I want you to celebrate. I want to see your celebration dance. So they come out of it, you know, their eyes are closed, they open their eyes, and woo, they scream. That's what's cementing it in. It's the emotion. So the visualization is absolutely important. But I think if we're really going to work to bring about change, we've got to capitalize on all of this. The emotion is a huge part of it.
I mean, I think because all of us have a little bit of auditory, visual, and kinesthetic in us. Some people are just more, you know, pushed one way than the other. So hitting them all is going to make that neural pathway connect faster.
Right.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and that makes a lot of sense. Wow, what a powerful technique, just making visualization just so much more in detail as well, so we can really, really feel that, and in conjunction with creating the future memories. That's an amazing, amazing strategy. And I love what you kind of talked about earlier in the episode too, the stop thinking. So simple, but so profound. I've been taking notes, and I'm excited to implement some of these strategies as well.
We just came back from, training doctors this weekend, and I watched the impact on
breakthroughs.
Yeah, the breakthroughs. It was remarkable. I mean, honestly, and I've watched it with people with health issues. The chemicals will drive the DNA and create bad proteins, hormones, etc. Chemicals do that. We're true cellular detox, but thoughts do the same thing. We've got to change your thoughts if we're going to make a new you. And that's what this is about. And I think we have to have Phil back on, like, for a part 2 of this. Would you agree? Sure.
I'm going to say the same thing, because this is such a huge topic, and there's so much more to delve into. I know I have more questions, but I know you guys don't have a lot of time today to really continue the conversation. But this is.
I want to add 2 more things before we wrap it up. One is I've been watching your right earring, and it's jingling, and it looks beautiful. The other one's not moving so much. Isn't it?
Depending by the light.
I like your earrings.
Thank you.
The second thing is, there are often many roads that lead to the same place. So I know that when I do talks, I get emails, I get phone calls, and people go, well, I do tapping, well, I do emotional release. And there are all these different techniques, and I don't condemn any of them. Yeah. I say, if it works for you, great. So I'm not saying this is the only way. Here's what I'm saying. This is the way that worked for me. This is the way that works for me consistently, and this is the way that I've been teaching other people to improve their lives.
And I've seen it work.
And it happens, like I said, in a moment. It doesn't happen the moment they start. It happens the moment the pathway changes. And we can make that happen relatively quickly if they're willing to be all in. So if you're guarded and you kind of half visualize, but your brain is going, this can't be possible, you're not going to get there. But once you get there, the switch flicks and your life changes.
Wow. How exciting. Gives us a lot of, power and control in our lives.
No doubt. This is a big topic, but don't bombard Phil with emails. If you're a practitioner or doctor watching this, he opened that up to you, and you gave him your email. Meredith, you can give him that one more time, and we'll wrap it up, but we're going to have a part 2, I promise, because this is a roadblock for many people getting well, where they want to be in life. and really the new you. If we really can shape our futures based on our thoughts, no doubt.
So exciting. Well, thank you guys so much for sharing. If you're a practitioner watching, you have any questions, just contact me, Meredith, MEREDITH, at drpompa.com. And I'm excited for part 2. So thanks, guys, so much. And have a great rest of your day. Thanks for watching, everyone.
Fun. Thanks, Meredith.